Have you ever noticed how adding just one candle to a pitch-black room feels like a huge deal? But adding one more candle to a room that's already blazing with light is, well, you barely even notice it. It turns out that's not random. Your brain is actually running a secret mathematical formula to make sense of the world, and today, we're going to crack the code.
All right, to get started, let's try a little perception puzzle. This really shows the law in action.
So take a look here. On the left side, the difference between the top square and the bottom square is super obvious, right? No-brainer. But now, look over at the right. Suddenly, telling the difference between the top and bottom is way harder to spot. And here's the crazy part. In both cases, the absolute difference is exactly the same. It's just 10 dots.
So what on earth is going on? Why does our brain look at the exact same change, 10 dots, and interpret it in two completely different ways? That is the big question we're here to answer.
And this isn't just some weird visual illusion. It works with pretty much all of our senses. Imagine you're at the gym. You lift a 1-pound weight, then a 2-pound weight. You'd feel that difference instantly. But what if you were already holding a 10-pound weight and someone snuck on just one more pound? That extra pound would be a lot harder to notice.
The key to this whole puzzle was figured out way back in the 19th century. And it turns out this isn't a glitch in our brains. It's a fundamental feature of how we're wired.
It really started with this German physician, Ernst Weber. Back in 1834, he was doing all these experiments on our sense of touch and how we perceive weight. Then, decades later, his student, a guy named Gustav Fechner, took those ideas, wrapped some elegant math around them, and in 1860, he published what we now know as the Weber-Fechner Law, naming it in honor of his mentor. And this is where it all clicks. See, our brain doesn't really care about the absolute change, like 10 more dots. What it really is a percentage of change detector. So going from 10 to 20 dots, that's a 100% increase. It's huge. But going from 110 to 120 dots, that's less than a 10% increase. See? It's the ratio that our brain actually pays attention to.
Weber came up with a term for this, the just noticeable difference, or JND for short. It's basically the smallest possible change in something, whether it's brightness or weight or sound, that a person can actually detect. And his huge insight was that this JND isn't some fixed amount. It's always a constant proportion of whatever you started with.
So Weber laid all the groundwork. Now let's see how Gustav Fechner took that foundation and built this incredible mathematical law on top of it. A law that kind of describes our inner world.
Okay, so Fechner's law says that our perception of something doesn't just grow in a straight line with its actual physical intensity. Nope, it grows logarithmically. Now, I know the word logarithm might give you flashbacks to high school math class, but trust me, the idea is actually really simple and kind of beautiful.
Let's just break it down. Say a stimulus, like a light, triples in physical strength. Our perceived brightness doesn't triple with it. It just kind of moves up one step. Then, if you triple the physical strength again, our perception just moves up one more step. So for every multiplication of stimulus in the real world, our brain just adds a little bit to our perception. It's like it compresses reality. Okay, so a 19th century law is interesting and all, but why does it matter to you today? Well, as it happens, this law is secretly running the code of our modern world in all sorts of ways you probably never expected. Take lighting design, for example. Designers know our eyes perceive light logarithmically. So they know that if you take a little bit of light away from the brightest part of a room and move it to the dimmest corner, the whole room will actually feel brighter and more comfortable, even if the total amount of light energy is exactly the same. How cool is that? Let's think about shopping. Okay, say your favorite headphones are on sale, but it's at a store across town. They're normally $40, but today they're $20. Would you make the trip to save that $20? I mean, most of us would say, yeah, absolutely. That's a 50% discount. Okay, now what if you're buying a brand new $1,000 laptop and the store across town has it for $980? The absolute saving is exactly the same, $20. But suddenly that drive across town, it just doesn't seem worth it, does it? Why? Because $20 off $1,000 is only a 2% discount. Your brain, running on the Weber-Fechner Law, barely even registers it as a good deal. And once you start looking, you see this principle literally everywhere. The way astronomers measure star brightness, it's logarithmic. Some people think it explains why voters expect more and more government spending just to be impressed. It's why telling the difference between the numbers 2 and 3 is easier than 92 and 93. It even shows up in the length of internet comments and, of course, the decibel scale for sound. It's just everywhere.
So is this law a perfect, unbreakable rule of the universe? Well, not quite.
like any good rule, it has some really interesting exceptions.
The Weber-Fechner law is a fantastic model for how our senses work in the middle range of things, but it starts to get a little fuzzy at the extremes. You know, at really, really low levels of a stimulus, like trying to see in near total darkness, or at incredibly high intensities, our ability to detect those proportional changes gets less and less reliable. The rule doesn't quite hold up at the edges.
So if you take one thing away from this, let it be this. Our senses aren't like perfect scientific instruments measuring absolute values. They're survival tools, finely tuned over millions of years to detect something far more important: relative change in the world around us. That is the real heart of the Weber-Fechner law.
From the stars in the night sky to the price tags in a store, this simple, elegant principle of relative perception is shaping your experience of reality every single second. So the next time a small change feels like a huge deal, or a really big change feels like nothing at all, you'll know why. So now that you know the code, how are you going to see your world differently?